In trying to improve the situation for EV drivers, I do go out there, I do find and film the failures, the broken chargers, the slow chargers, the extortionately priced chargers, and those with software incompatibilities or app failures. And a few viewers have commented that all this negative reporting is putting them off buying or leasing their first EV. But in fact, they are being completely disingenuous. See, these are the ones who have no intention of ever buying or leasing an EV. They're the victims of the negative media that we find all around us every single day. They're the ones already looking for EV and infrastructure failures, and they're looking for any hint that EVs will fail completely disastrously so they can gloat and say, "Well, I told you so." And they're a growing breed, and it's not just restricted to EVs. Well, let's put them firmly in the correct place and see what it is actually like in the real world as someone who's done it to buy or lease your first EV, or in some cases, you're going to be given an EV as a company car. I'm Dave. This is Dave Takes It On. Well, a few years ago, my local health authority announced that their main hospital was an ancient building, horribly thermally inefficient, almost entirely out of space for new state-of-the-art medical equipment, and with a car park that was constantly overflowing, and parking was forced out onto nearby house drives, grass verges, and shop car parks. Now, they found an out-of-town site that offered a massive plot on which they could build a totally modern, much larger, efficient hospital, packed with all the latest gadgets and equipment, making it probably the world leader in cancer treatment. Plus, it had a massive space for a car park, ensuring all who visited could easily find a space no matter what time of the day or night it was. And besides, they said they would operate a free bus service back into the town for those who didn't drive. The old hospital was to be put up for sale and would be granted planning permission for social and affordable housing. So, what did the local news channel report? Well, they actually found Fred. He was a pensioner who didn't any longer drive, who currently could walk to the old hospital from his house. Very slowly, but it was only a couple of minutes away. The reporter and the camera crew took him on a trip to the new location, which hadn't even yet got planning permission, but that involved 4 separate bus journeys, taking a total of over an hour and a half in total, costing several pounds, and they happened to choose a day when the weather was cold and wet. Yeah, they seem to have forgotten totally that a free bus service would be offered. We see bad news sells newspapers. Disaster stories get clicks on social media. For these people, there is no good news. They always seek out the disaster behind every situation. I predict that they are going to totally ignore the rest of this video. Well, I bought my first EV nearly 5 years ago and instantly loved it. It's a Tesla Model S. Bought it used. I still have it and drive it every day. Instead of wondering, is that a Vauxhall or Toyota or Honda? They're all the same these days. It was instantly very modern looking and identifiable. I was no longer just one of the faceless masses who bought the same old, same old. I felt really good. Now, it's inside the car, it was very different. I instantly loved it. I'd recently driven a brand new BMW Series 3 Sport and was amazed to find, yeah, I photographed and counted them, 93 switches, knobs, dials, buttons, scroll wheels and sliders. This didn't, it had 12. And it sort of reminded me of changing from my desktop computer with a big box on the floor with a whirring fan, a monitor on my desk, a mouse, a keyboard, a webcam, a scanner and a printer, and it took up about a quarter of the spare room upstairs that it was all in. Well, compared to my new iPad, I could at last sit downstairs in the warmth in front of the television and catch up on my emails. No keyboard, no mouse, no separate display. The printer, well, that was still upstairs. But totally hidden away, but always instantly linked by Wi-Fi. This to me was heaven. And that to me was my introduction to EVs, a step forward into the future, not back into the past. Same old, same old. I still parked in the same space, my drive in front of the house, but now I knew that regular trips to a smelly, cold, wet petrol station late at night before a long trip in the morning were a thing of the past. Every time I pulled in, I plugged in. It took 5 seconds. Yeah, I actually timed it and filmed it. Every morning when I went out, the battery was full. It took me 10 seconds to unplug it and then stow the cable away. And it was not only very much quicker than those regular trips to the nearest petrol station, it was dramatically, incredibly, unbelievably cheaper. My last trips to fill up in my old diesel car cost me well over 60 quid for a tank full. Plugging into my home charger overnight using cheap off-peak rates offered to me by my existing electricity supplier once I told them I had an EV cost me just a few pence over a fiver, £5 if the battery was totally flat, and far less than £1 on a normal day when I covered 20 or 30 miles. Well, let me cover driving an EV for the first time. It's absolutely effortless and silence. And the lack of clutch, gear stick, or indeed gears is really weird. You don't get in and start the engine, press the clutch, select a gear, release the handbrake, etc. You select forward or backwards and just go. And the sensation of going effortlessly and quietly from 0 to 70 mile an hour, or maybe occasionally a little bit more, it's wonderful. No engine noise, no gear changes. EVs have no gears to change. They actually can go from 0 to their top speed all in one gear, but startlingly quickly. The acceleration always still brings a smile to your face. An Aston Martin DB7, BMW 320d Sport, Ford Puma ST, Jaguar ZX Sport Brake, a Lamborghini Urraco, a Porsche Taycan, TVR Tasman, hell, even a Ferrari Mondial, all take over 7 seconds to reach 60 miles an hour, while a bog standard EV family saloon like an MG4 or a Tesla Model 3 standard range can get you there much quicker. Now, I know most of us don't need that acceleration, but hey, it is fun having it. Driving is incredibly simple. My Tesla Model S has one pedal driving. This is weird. You press the accelerator to go, you unpress it to, release it to stop. Your brake pedal suddenly becomes almost useless. It's there for emergencies only. Still works. You still stand on it in an emergency, but you don't use it. You have no idea how easy and relaxing that makes driving an EV until you try it. And while driving, you suddenly notice the petrol stations as you whiz past them, with often a short queue of cars outside and probably half a dozen motorists all standing around in the cold, the wind and the rain. Yeah, I know they have canopies, but the wind usually manages to drive the rain in under it. At least it did when I went and filled up. You suddenly realise that you will never be there again. It is a wonderful feeling. For me, the weirdest thing was getting out at the end of the trip. You allow the car to stop and instinctively you reach for your ignition key in the early days to turn the engine off. There isn't one. You reach instinctively for the handbrake. There isn't one. As your EV stops, it automatically applies the handbrake. There's no engine to turn off. When your car stops, the engines are automatically stopped. And it feels really unusual in the early days just to open the door and get out. The car simply puts itself into park when you get out, and when you close the door, it automatically locks itself. It really couldn't be simpler. An EV for me meant much more than enjoyable driving. Yeah, it is fast, but I find myself driving slower. There is no rush. I just enjoy the ride. And the active safety features are all there, every single EV, to keep you safe. Head towards an obstacle, car flashes red lights at you and buzzes to alert you. Keep going, and the car takes over and slams on the brakes. They are much more difficult to crash, but not impossible. Parking is enlightening also. Slow down and my car switches into parking mode and actively looks for parking spaces big enough it can fit into. They flick up on the screen as you drive along, and when you find one, it offers you a chance to use it on the display. You can just ignore it, of course, but if you click on it, then the car stops, enters self-parking mode. Yeah, it parks itself, and mine does a really good job. It is a touch slow, that's all. Well, the whole experience is, well, it's just, well, it's great. I loved it. I loved it. Just like I loved abandoning all the computer paraphernalia, separate room upstairs, and loved the freedom that my iPad gave me. That does almost everything the old computer used to do, but actually much quicker, simpler. The smaller screen, when it's up close, is equivalent to a larger screen a meter away. That also has voice activation. I no longer actually need a physical keyboard. My car's got voice activation. I can tell it commands, it will change the heating and do things. Out on the open road, the car is smooth and silent. Once on the motorway, I select autopilot and the car will activate adaptive cruise control and lane keeping. While the law says I'm still legally responsible for what the car does, and I should keep fully alert and my hands and feet on the controls, I have a reassurance that if my attention wanders, as it must on a 2, 3 or 4 hour trip, then the car's attention won't. Tesla regularly release data that shows that driving on autopilot while maintaining awareness and attention is actually up to 10 times safer than driving myself with none of the safety features activated. 10 times. Well, how about range anxiety? Did I get it? Yeah, it was all new to me, and of course I worried, as all the media was making such a huge thing of it. And despite having a range of well over 200 miles, I would always make sure I topped it up again if it got down near to 100 miles of range left. I'll explain how my range anxiety was eliminated shortly, but at this stage I need to cover EV charging when out on the road. Well, just like in a petrol diesel car, when you run out of fuel, your car stops. There's nothing magic about EVs, nothing surprising, mysterious. If you run the battery flat, your EV stops. So the obvious solution here is don't let your battery go flat. And here the car will actually help you. It will have controls and displays working out how far you can go on the remaining battery capacity. It's called your state of charge, SOC. This can be shown in either percentage of the battery left or miles left before it runs out. I personally always use miles left. If I'm going on a 36-mile journey and the battery says I've got 86 miles remaining, I know I can make it. Really simple. If it only has 26 miles of range left, I cannot make it without charging. Really simple. Now, a quick lesson on charging. I've driven many different EVs and I've charged at most public chargers and filmed most of them for the channel and the videos. And I can state categorically that if you want an easy life, there is only one EV company that makes EVs and provides all their drivers with an integrated, nationwide, powerful, reliable, cheap, incredibly easy to use EV charger network. That's Tesla. You need no apps, you need no RFID cards, you don't need a contactless bank card. If you want an easy life, and you can afford one, just go Tesla. Your car monitors your progress at all times, and if you're getting near to the point where you will not have enough power to get you to a charger, it actually tells you loud and clear. Ignore this message at your peril. It will tell and show you all the chargers within range and tell you not only the number and power of individual chargers, but also how many are currently occupied. On arrival, you almost always reverse into the bay and the charger and the charging point on your EV will be in the near side left quarter. Always is. Take out the charger plug, press the button on it, and your EV charger port flap will open. Don't need an app, don't need to get in your car, press the button. Plug it in, that's it. It just begins charging. Every single time, exactly the same. Plug it in, it works. Plug it in, it works. When it's full or reaches the SOC you want, it stops charging and releases the plug. Well, remove it, put it back into the charger and set off driving. The cost of that session will be taken automatically via your chosen method you used when you bought the car. Bank direct debit, credit card, debit card, American Express, Diners card, Apple Pay, whatever you like. There's a variety of choices, but that payment is taken automatically as you set off. While a few public chargers now claim to offer an auto charge, they do, or other similar feature, it will not apply to every public EV charger, nor to every make and model of car, and nor to every type of payment. Tesla does offer an app with every single car, and some superchargers now accept contactless payments. As a Tesla driver, I don't need them. You don't ever need to use these. You don't need to use the app. You don't need to use contactless card. You don't need any of it. Charging your Tesla at a Tesla supercharger gives you instant access to every single Tesla charger in the whole world using this automatic system. I've charged my Tesla, UK, France, Spain, Italy, Germany, probably a few other places, all totally flawlessly. Plug it in, charges, unplug it, drive off. One final thing you will notice, there's no service schedule or requirement to have it serviced. That's unusual. There are items you need to check, silly things like tyres, windscreen wipers, cabin air filters, screen wash. But all of these can happily be done by yourself or your local garage without invalidating the warranty. Now, range anxiety, I said I'd come back to that. When I first got it, if ever I went out on a drive, and some of the drives I was doing was beyond the range of the car, whenever I get down to about 100-mile range, I would always stop and recharge it. That's range anxiety. Didn't want the miles left to go below 100 miles. That was my version of range anxiety. And all it did, it meant that I stopped more often than I do now. Didn't harm me in any way, and a lot of the stops were very short 10, 15, 20-minute breaks, but that's how I did it. And then one time I was down in Birmingham. Birmingham's just on 100 miles away, and my car had a 110-mile range showing on it when I was about to set off. So I got in the car, said 110-mile range. I programmed in my home address. For people, this might sound silly, but I always use the sat nav and the charging app. They're all in one on the Tesla. I use the sat nav because if the motorway is closed or if there's a roadblock up ahead or heavy traffic, the sat nav will navigate me round that rather than me getting there, arriving, having to stop and think, why did anyone tell me this was here? So I always use the sat nav, even though I obviously know where I live. I also use it for the charging side of it, that if I'm going home and I need to stop at a charger, the sat nav and the charger app, which are all built into one on the Tesla, will tell me where the best place to stop, the quickest place to stop. So if I stop here, it'll be quicker than if I stop there or there. You know what I mean? So on this particular occasion, I put in my home address. It said distance to home 100 miles, range 107 miles. And normally at this point, it goes into a mode which is, I'm going to find the best supercharger for you. And it just takes a few seconds. It is searching for superchargers. And then it comes up with a list of superchargers. And on this particular occasion, it didn't do that. It said, and it gives you all this data, which you don't get in petrol cars, it said your destination is 100 miles away, you have 107 miles of range, you will arrive with 4% battery remaining. And I thought, will I? 4%? 7 miles I've got extra. What if there's a diversion? So anyhow, on that particular journey, I thought, okay, I need to trust the car. I'm going to be living with it for the rest of the time I keep it. And so I need to find out what it's like. So we set off, and all the way, I mean, to talk about range anxiety, I was watching every single mile I was doing. I was comparing the miles left on the battery to the miles left on the sat nav. 87 miles to home. How many miles have I got? 94. Oh, we're still on track. And I did this all the way home, and it was quite a harrowing journey, particularly as you got closer. Now, I did have an advantage in that coming from Birmingham up to my house near Preston, there are 3 Tesla superchargers very, very close together. So had I been running out, it would have been really easy to just nip into one of these and do a top-up. But of course, I charge from home. So, and I actually just carried on driving. I was watching it all the way, and I arrived, and I had 8 miles left, and I plugged it in. Um, it was, it's what broke my range anxiety. First thing is, I learned to trust the car. If it says I can make it, I now just, I don't even question it. It can make it. If it says I'm going to get there with 3 miles, hell, I'll get there with 3 miles, and I barely look at it anymore. If it shows me charges en route, I know I can't make it at all, even down to, a couple of miles. So I'll always arrange for a stop on the way. And it actually just broke my range anxiety. It just said, let the car do it. Now, the car will plan it all for you. If I program into my car, it's outside now in Preston. So if I program into my car Rome, it will do me the full route. It uses the car, the Eurotunnel every time. Don't know why. I'm sure there might be a way of getting it to do the ferries as well. But it will plan the route. It will plan every single stop. It will tell you how much battery you will have left when you get there, how long you need to charge for, and how far it is on to the next charge. From here right the way through to Rome. There is no worry whatsoever. And I know for a fact, if I follow that, I will get there. I will never run out of fuel, never run out of battery run with a flat battery. And so you learn very quickly, and the quicker you do this, the better your experience will be. You learn very quickly just to trust the car. Find out if it's accurate. You do this really simply. You pick a journey that you know, let's say here to Birmingham, 100 mile, and you start with 200 miles of fuel, battery charge, and you just set off there, and you should arrive at your destination with 100 miles left. If when you get there you've got 100 mile left, great, it's accurate like mine was, and I can trust it totally. If when you get there there's only 60 mile left, you can't trust it. You need to do a bit more experimenting. If when you get there you've got 110 mile left, that's a nice little safety margin. And that's just one trip. You can do this a couple of times in the first month or so, and you'll very quickly learn, yeah, I can. Worst you're likely to find is a busy charger where you have to queue. Yeah, just like you sometimes did at the petrol station. But with an in-car display, you will know it is full well before you get there, giving you the option of going to a different supercharger that's not full. If you were heading for one 80 miles away and it's shown as full, but you're passing one 60 mile away and it's empty, nip in there, top up, and then carry on. So simple. So don't listen to all the hysterical anti-EV hype. Most of it never actually applied in the first place, and most of the rest has long since been superseded by technological advances. You'll discover then that the time it takes you to stop on your road trip, have a toilet break, quickly grab something to eat, you can add 150, 170 miles of range back into your battery in that time. And that's good, believe it or not, for another 3 or 4 hours driving. We don't average 70 on a motorway these days with the traffic, it's near as 60. So this is about 3 hours of motoring. 15 minutes? Amazing. Well, I've driven some really nice EVs in my time. Though we're not Teslas, I do drive a variety of cars, and some of them really compelling cars. Some of them better quality, better performance, much more space, better off-road capabilities. There's a whole lot of other things that they're better at that may be important to you. Many of these cars will also be cheaper. So do your own homework. Make your own choice as to what will suit you and your particular motoring needs. But if you have the budget, then for the massive features, I mean, for example, Tesla Model 3, who offers you a full-blown computer in the back of the car with their own display capable of wireless remote controls for the kids, and they're capable of playing all the latest games on Steam? And that's in the standard car, the base model car. Or for the sheer ease of use, the very latest tech, constant over-the-air updates. My car is still receiving them. It's now coming up to 9 years old. It's actually better now than when I bought it. It does more. In actual fact, it goes faster and it goes further because I had an acceleration upgrade and it released more of the battery that it was holding back in reserve. It does more today than it did 9 years ago. Your average petrol car is flagging after 8 or 9 years. It's on its last legs, compression's going, you're starting to burn more oil, etc., etc. Mine's getting better. Okay, so for ease of use and pure enjoyment, I heartily recommend a Tesla. Well, I'm Dave. Thanks very much. If you have watched this, hopefully you are someone who's looking at buying your first car. And I trust very much that you will go out and try a wide variety of them. It's quite easy these days to have test drives. You can go to hubs, people like GridServe down in Braintree and several new hubs they've got. And they have a collection of cars there all the time. And you can just call in with your driving license, you can register yourself, and you can then go out and take any one of those cars, or all of them, and just go and have a drive around the countryside. So thanks very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. If you're considering buying a Tesla as your first Tesla, then down below in the description, have a look out for our referral code. Tesla are very keen on encouraging people to recommend their neighbours, friends, family and others. And there's a nice reward in it. If I recommend you and you go ahead and order a car, you will receive £1,000 off the purchase price of that car. It's absolutely great, totally free. Why not do it? There's very little in this world that's totally free of charge, but £1,000 off is there. I also, in the meantime, I get £500 credited to my Tesla account. It's not cash, but it does mean next time I take the car in, if I have any repairs or upgrades or need new tyres or something, I can just use that £500 towards or to pay for it. It's really simple. And likewise, I've mentioned if you're charging overnight, get yourself a cheap overnight rate, off-peak rate, and Octopus seems to be the favourite one at the moment, and they also offer a referral scheme. So if you are switching from whoever you're with at the moment to Octopus because you're getting or have an EV already, use the referral code down below. And what that will do, it will allocate £100. You get 50, I get 50. Once again, I don't get it as money. I get it credited to my Octopus account, my home energy account. If you enjoyed this video, please click the like button. And if you want to see more, please click subscribe. It makes such a difference to the channel. And a big thank you to all our regulars and particularly our Patreon members. This is all second nature to you, but don't forget, at some point in the past, you were asking these very questions, wondering, what is it like when I buy my first EV? Help them. Let's let them know that it's a good experience and it's not the negative stuff you get in the media. I'm Dave.